So, Anton, tell me about camp.
So we're running a new camp at Musser Scout Reservation, which is known as our STEM Adventure Day Camp. Now, this camp is for um, youth who can be first through fifth grade, so that's our Cub Scout age, but also for youth who are sixth through eighth grade, so in the Scout Space age range. But it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who is involved in scouting. We recommend for any Cubs or Scouts who want to go as well, but if they have friends or members of the community who are not involved, they can attend as well. This camp is, like I said, at Musser Scout Reservation at our Camp Garrison facilities, and it is all focused around STEM. So, rockets, weather, robots, all sorts of things STEM-based. The starting price is $370 per week, but there is a rate if you're signed up with Scouts, either would be a Cub Scout pack of $325. For our older youth, it's a little pricier at $385, but the Scout rate would be $340. We're running 6 weeks of program, our first week starting June 24th, and then our last week ends on August 2nd. It's a really great opportunity for Scouts to get the camp. It's not a resident camp, but if it's something easier for parents to have their Scouts attend, I highly recommend it. And with those prices, there is also the option of transportation included, which would be busing. So that's a little bit about our STEM Adventure Day camp.
Okay, so now we're recording. So this is Reese Wallace. It is, what day is it? It is the 25th of November, 2023. I'm with Antonia McCall, known by everyone as Ant. So we'll just dive into the questions. So how long have you been in scouting?
I guess since I'm around 14 or 15 years old. Yeah.
Okay, so you joined Boy Scouts, which is now Scouts BSA. So you were never a Cub Scout?
I was never a Cub Scout, no.
Okay.
I was actually a tag-along friend of who was an actual Scout, and who I believe he was a Boy Scout. And I just was tag-along and kind of like fell in love with the program.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. So what is your role in scouting? You can name your current role in scouting. You can talk about some previous roles you've had in scouting. Anything you want to share.
Sure. Currently, I'm just a parent guardian. Well, I've recently been asked to, how scouting is. And anybody who's listening to this would know how scouting is. You're asked to, to volunteer for more and more things. So I've been recently asked to be an assistant scoutmaster, whereas in the past I've been an assistant and a scoutmaster of my own troop. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I was was a junior assistant scoutmaster of the same troop. So yeah.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah, like you said, Scouter syndrome. We all get more involved and we get different hats throughout the course of our time in scouting. So you have the unique perspective where you're a parent and guardian for two lovely young people. And I'm curious, did your niece and nephew choose scouting, or how did that happen? Did it just naturally flow into it, or did they say, hey, we want to try this, or you were like, hey, because I know my dad asked me, like, do you want to try scouting, and brought me to my first Cub Scout meetings. I didn't know if you asked them what they thought or how that went down.
Well, I don't think you can. Well, I guess you could, but you can't really force a kid to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing wasn't, I guess if it was, let's say hockey, I would have just say, hey, look, let's do this cool thing that I know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was scouting. That was a cool thing that I knew how to do, and most of my youth was spent doing it. So I introduced it to them, and they were like, okay, cool. And it was not so much them at the time. It was mainly my nephew who was of age to be a Boy Scout. Mm-hmm. So it was and he was like, cool, and he really loved it initially. And then his sister joined as a Cub Scout. Initially, and everything was going great, and then it was around the pandemic time, and then things kind of fell apart. He eventually, decided that it wasn't something he was no longer interested in. But she was like in between. She was a Weeblo Scout and wanting to be doing more. So it was like a year where she had to just kind of like wait it out. She, came to Scout meetings. They invited her to come, and then she officially joined as a Scout. And she's, I've been supporting her ever since. So,
Excellent.
So my nephew is no longer involved, but my niece is. So.
Okay. Oh, I love that they are trying. That your nephew tried it out, and I am very glad that there is a place for your niece. It made me very excited when they allowed and welcomed girls to join Scouts PSA when they rebranded. So that made my heart happy. So I'm happy that it continues scouting in your family too.
Totally.
So how has scouting impacted your life and an extension of the lives of your family? We could talk about you first if you want.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, how's it impacted my life? I think scouting is the thing, right? Scouting is a thing, but the people in scouting is what makes it all possible. And what has been the biggest impact for me is the relationships that I've made throughout my scouting, journey. I've met some people at 14 that I still know today, almost 40 years old. So I could call any of them right now and they would give me their left arm if they could. It's like just some really good people. So the biggest, outside of me being an Eagle Scout and all that great stuff, some of the greatest things that I've experienced in scouting was just good relationships with people and learning that we're all pretty much the same. We have this thing that we really like, but it's I don't know, it's just kind of like unifying and brings us all together. And it's a similar interest from people of all different walks of life, and we make these lifelong relationships that are just I can't even explain it sometimes to people. Like they're like, how do you know this person? I'm like, well, there was this one time when I was a scout, and they're like, okay, and it's kind of hard to explain sometimes, but we, us as scouters, we get why we are friends with certain people, and it just it just lasts a lifetime. Yeah.
Well said. And then, how has it impacted your niece? I'm curious because she's still involved in the program. Have you seen transformational growth in her? Has her leadership improved? As she, I don't know, maybe she was shy and she's come out of her shell. I don't know what changes you've seen in her.
Honestly, I'm just kind of concerned for kids these days, especially the two that I help raise, because they don't get to go outside and play like traditional kids and just do the things that we did not that long ago. They're in the house playing video games and stuff like that, and just Scouts is just a great way to make friends and to learn cool things. And she has done both of those. She has made friends and she's learning cool things, things that she probably never thought she would need to know or wanted to know, like lashings and how to start a fire. It's like, she's probably like, why am I learning this? But after having gone to camp twice and gone to several camping trips, she's just like, it's just second nature for her now, and she seems to be really turning into a scout that we all recognize. It's like, okay, what am I doing this weekend? Like, where am I going this weekend? We all understand what that is. We all look forward to eating by the fire or roasting marshmallows or going on a cool camping trip, and she's speaking that language now. So I'm enjoying seeing her pick up skills that she probably never thought she would ever need to know, and then knowing from my experience that she'll carry those things for the rest of her life. So it's kind of cool.
Amen. Well said.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite memory from scouting? If you have more than one, you can share as much as you want or as little as you want. But I kind of want to hear your favorite memory.
Sure. I am a 6'4", over 300-pound man, and I've been that kind of like physique since I was 14 years old.
Oh wow!
I was actually bigger than I am now. So can you imagine that? So scouting, allows you to be all of that, but nobody's like phased by it. We're just, because we all get it. We're all there for that same thing, and I've always enjoyed the fact that I never had to just like, if you play football, you know what your job is. Scouting was just, just one of everybody else, so I can remember, after going to camp and then joining camp staff, having been called upon by a little scout who needed a bigger person to help kill a spider. And who did they call? They called me, and I'm like, okay, I'm scared of spiders too, but okay, here we go. And that was God knows how many years ago. And to this day, that scout is one of my best friends, and, it's just like, it was just, I don't know, God or what, but it was scouting that had this larger scout and this smaller scout meet, and form this bond over a spider, and we're friends to this day. So something like that just, reinforces what it's all about.
Excellent. So how I know you is from the Heart Camp staff. So what made you join camp staff?
Well, I was at Delmont, the Nelson Training Center, 2001, doing Silver Stag, NYLT, as it's called today. And Andy Amato, who was one of the senior staff at Heart, was there for whatever reason, and he was talking to my scoutmaster, who was a female, and he was like, I got, room over here at Camp Heart for your scouts if you want to come work. And I'm like, work? Wait, at camp I could work? And she was like, okay. And then that very next summer, here I am working at camp. And the rest is history. So what was your question?
How you joined Heart Camp staff? And
so there we go. Yeah. So so it started out with me being trained as a junior leader, and then going right into working that very next summer, and then doing about 9 summers after that. So
oh wow.
It just it was I would complete a summer and then look forward to the next one, and then it just year after year, it's just like it kept going. So, but that's how it started.
Wow. Well, thank you for working camp staff 9 summers. I only did 6.
Wow.
Yeah, I did 6, but 9 is quite impressive. And you worked there when it was a Boy Scout camp and then a Cub Scout camp.
A Boy Scout camp, confused a couple of years, and then a Cub Scout camp. It was a camp in transition.
Yes.
And I kind of like stuck through all of it because it was still the place that I loved. It was still summer, though it was some periods where there was a lot of craziness. We were still doing this magical stuff where kids were coming and leaving with memories that would last them a lifetime. And I bought into that idea, and I still do. And I think that's what camp's all about. And that's what kept me going back, just knowing that those couple of weeks, it was taking you away from whatever your normal thing was, and you're there creating memories that you will have for the rest of your life. And I really took that seriously. That that we're all none of us that go to camp or in involved with scouting. This was kind of thing that we all used to joke about, that we're none of us are the bad guys. We're all the good guys, you know. So like, you know, and so it's supposed to feel that way, and that's what it felt like, you know. This bunch of good people coming together, having a good time, you know, and you just kind of get like a little bit of addicted to that, you know. And so that's where how I kept going. So, and I want to share that, because I was there a long time, and then you did your 6, and then I'm sure there were people after you who was on that same journey right now, waiting until the summertime to get back to camp with their friends and making memories for people that are beneath them or coming up. So
exactly,
just keep going. Yeah.
I never heard it so well explained. That addiction, that was the word I was looking for when I was explaining to people why I kept going to camp. And now we have folks back at Garrison, so you know.
That's awesome.
We got some staff back at Garrison. They're still Musser staff, but they're doing stuff out of Garrison now. So they're doing some more STEM-based camping.
That's good.
So they're still doing that. So it's a little different, but we finally have the camp staff again. So they're building from scratch, but they are continuing, and I got to see them in action this summer, so it was pretty good.
It's good.
So, okay. So what's your biggest takeaway from your time on camp staff? You did 9 years, so you must have learned a lot of lessons.
I did learn a lot of lessons. I learned that your introduction to people, your first introduction to people, is what they remember, what they will remember forever. You know, like you, or I can name at least 100 people.
Yeah,
I remember you from, and I'm like, oh God, I hope it. And it was always a good interaction. It was always something good. It was never a bad thing, which is like, you know, not that I was nervous that I was a jerk to anybody, but, you know, you just never know what that next sentence is going to be. But luckily, you know, my interactions with people, that first one was always a good one, you know. So when I'm seeing them now 15 years later in the supermarket, or 10 years later in the Walmart, because that's how it happens. These people are in your communities, and they go on, you know, you see them, but it all goes back to that original interaction, you know. And I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time remembering your questions. I should have printed out your list.
Oh,
you know, I start going on a tangent of talking, and then I'm like, well, what did he just say?
It's all good. That's my job. My job is just to have you get you talking. So we were talking about your biggest takeaway from camp staff, and then that's when you were telling us about the first impressions.
So, first impressions, you know. I've had, maybe I can count on one hand, some bad interactions at camp, but they've all been concluded with, you know, like I had, and I won't get into it, something that was, you know, as a black man, you would never want to experience at a camp, you know, because you feel vulnerable, because our numbers are low anyway, you know, so you hope that you could just blend in, right? You know, me, 6'4" black, you know, that's like, how can I blend in? But that's your goal. You want to just be one of everybody else, you know. One second. And you just want to blend in, but then when somebody makes a point to point out the obvious, you know, it kind of like sours the experience. But just to conclude, I had that happen, and then a decade or so later, you know, that person come back to me and say, you were a really good person, you know, should have never gone down that way, you know. And I just truly believe that it was scouting in their heart, you know, that helped them to see the light, you know. So the takeaway is that, you know, we may have things that aren't the greatest, but Scout is always there to remind us of things that's really important, you know. The Scout laws are not just things that you say in a meeting, or things you say just to, you know, kind of because that's what we do. They're just constant kind of reminders of who we should be as people. So
Exactly. Well, I'm sorry that you had some negative interactions, but I'm also glad that people learn from them, and like you said, the scout oath and the scout law maybe help trigger in their mind, like, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't be acting like this. So that's, I don't like the negative, but it's good to hear that it bloomed into a positive. Someone learned something.
Life needs that balance, right? Because if you don't have a negative experience, you don't know what a good one feels like. So
exactly, you'd be a good Buddhist. Because we talk about, I'm Buddhist personally, and we talk about transforming things, like the no mud, no lotus flower. So we talk about the transformation of things all the time. So you'd be a good Buddhist.
Cool.
So, so what advice would you give the other folks who want to join camp staff, specifically African Americans who want to join camp staff?
Just step out of your comfort zone. Do something that you've probably never thought you would do. Take what makes you unique and special, and show that to people who probably you're the first introduction to that, and introduction to that. That's the beauty of camp staff, because everybody comes with something that's special to them, and they get to be the representative of themselves, and show a new group of people something they probably never seen before, and then learn something they probably never learned before. So it's a give and take. It's definitely a positive experience if you're just kind of like open-minded to that. And yeah, I totally would recommend it, because it's like such a unique thing, camp staff, like, it's not, nothing you can ever understand unless you just do it. You can hear about it, you can see there's always a movie about a camp staff and sleepaway camp and what that's all about, but unless you experience it and have just that experience, you will never understand what it's like to be vulnerable in an environment, and then just learning new things from people you may not have ever met before. So Excellent.
So what keeps you in scouting, or what has kept you in scouting so long?
What has kept me in scouting so long, there was a period where I stepped away, but what brought me back was the thing that had me there originally was that life gets chaotic and crazy and all over the place, but scouting for me has always been like a like a meditative experience. It's not full of like really overly stimulated type of activities. Like if it's sitting by the fire, to me that's like really peaceful. If it's working on a lashing, for me that's like really meditative. If it's going on a hike, you can have time to think and pray and talk to something bigger than you. It's like a lot of the things we do in scouting is, for me, I relate it back to self-reflection and meditating and stuff like that. Of course there's skills and things that you learn as a scout, but alongside of that, it helps you to develop as a more peaceful kind of like individual. If you really take in all aspects of scouting, and I like all that other stuff. I like the lashings and all that scouting skills, but the other parts, like having a respect for nature and understanding of that it's something bigger than you, and and that you're a part of a more circular type of thing, is important. So I like all of that, and that's what I come back to, because sometimes as an adult, life gets a bit crazy, but if I can just go on a weekend and go sit under a tree or go fishing or something like that, it really just kind of like brings me back to things that I like to do.
Okay, that makes sense to me. The Japanese call it tree bathing. When you go out into the woods, like there's actual studies that show it does a lot for your mind, and it does a lot for your health. So I can definitely see what you mean by it being meditative or just relaxing. So I'm going to reword a question I originally had. So, what would you tell to the next generation of African American Scouters, or what words of encouragement, or like tips or tricks, or what would you want to say to them?
What would I want to say to them? I would want to say to them that maybe something that I'm really not big on, which is that I am, but then I'm not, because this probably seems cliche, but I don't see color. I see people, and I feel energy. I really, so I know I'm a representative of the Black community, and I try to be a positive one, but more importantly than that, I'm just trying to be a good person. So if you're a good person and you just so happen to be an African American person, then hey, that's a plus, so I would tell them that, be good representatives of your race, your culture, that's important, but be a good person. And then, and be a good person in different places that we're probably not seen in. So, of course, there are other things that you can do, but try scouting. Why not try scouting? So, in other cultures, maybe it's something that's been passed down and passed through the generations, but I think for African American scouts, as far as I know, it's you have people who have done it. Have they handed that down as like a tradition to their sons and grandsons? Probably not. And I just think that we need to do more of that, because it is important, and it has done so much for so long, so that's the only way to keep it going, is to really understand that scouting is you. Scouting was originated somewhere, but it's great or as bad as the people that's in it. So if you feel like you're a good person and you can provide some good things, and like I do, I'm in there. I'm creating memories. I'm sharing knowledge. And hopefully a handful, if not just one, of those people that one of the youth that I stand in front of will take something away and then do the same thing. So, be a part of something, give some of yourself, and then hopefully that has some type of effect on somebody. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. And then, were you ever in the Order of the Arrow?
Yeah, I was Brotherhood.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. What was your experience in the OA like?
It was a good one. I joined as a scout, as a camp staff. So I was elected through the camp staff instead of my home troop, which was a different experience. Not terribly so, but because I didn't have that bonding thing with my home troop, it was like I was so. But I still had that brotherhood of the OA, which is kind of great. I like that whole idea of cheerful service, because there's things that you just do not want to do. There's things that you just don't see the point of doing. But having this reminder that, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it like I like to do it.
Yeah.
Because I understand, and it's all about a reminder. And for a while as a youth, I would always remind myself, hey, I'm a part of this cool thing, and we do things because they just need to be done. And so it was a kind of like gentle reminder for me to do it. And as an adult, I don't necessarily say I'm doing this because I'm a part of the way, but it's just ingrained in me now to just do things for people, or do things because this is just what we do, And so I think it served that purpose in me, which is reminding me that we're just helpers and doers, and so I like that part of the OA.
Very good. So at this point, I'm gonna stop.
Excellent. Now tell me about Resica Falls.
So Resica Falls is our Scouts BSA camp in the Poconos. It is 4,200 acres. Really beautiful property. I worked there for 3 summers of my life, and I do really love it. That is for our typical Scout summer camp, earning merit badges. We have afternoon adventures now, so it's not all day classes of merit badges, but there is adventures in the afternoon that scouts can go on, such as canoeing on the Delaware River or going to Fossil Rock and jumping into the natural swimming hole. So it's a really great opportunity for those scout troops to attend. If you can't attend with your troop, there's options to go with our provisional troop 1, so you can go up and be put with other scouts whose troops aren't attending Resica. There's also a couple high adventure opportunities at Resica for older scouts, such as Fall and Run and Paddlerama on the Delaware River.
Excellent. Thank you, Anton.
Hey!